Grenada, often referred to as the Island of Spice, is a small but vibrant nation located in the southeastern Caribbean Sea. Known for its lush landscapes, aromatic nutmeg, and rich cultural heritage, Grenada's history is a tapestry woven with the threads of indigenous cultures, European colonization, African slavery, and the struggle for independence. This article delves deep into the history of Grenada, exploring its pre-Columbian roots, colonial past, and the path to becoming a sovereign nation. By understanding Grenada's history, we gain insight into the resilience and spirit of its people, who have shaped the island's identity over centuries. Long before European explorers set foot on Grenada, the island was inhabited by indigenous peoples. The first known inhabitants were the Arawaks, who migrated from the Orinoco River region in South America around 2000 BCE. The Arawaks were skilled farmers, fishermen, and potters, living in harmony with the island's natural environment. They cultivated crops such as cassava, maize, and sweet potatoes, and their society was organized into small, peaceful communities. However, the Arawaks' peaceful existence was disrupted by the arrival of the Caribs, a more aggressive and warlike people who also originated from South America. The Caribs began migrating to the Caribbean islands around 1200 CE, and by the time Christopher Columbus arrived in the late 15th century, they had largely displaced the Arawaks in Grenada. The Caribs, known for their seafaring skills and fierce resistance to European colonization, named the island Camerhon, meaning Island of the Caribs. The first European to sight Grenada was Christopher Columbus during his third voyage to the New World in 1498. Columbus named the island Concepcion, but it was later renamed Grenada by Spanish explorers, after the city in Spain. Despite the Spanish claim, Grenada remained largely untouched by European settlement for over a century. The Caribs' fierce resistance and the island's lack of gold or other immediate riches made it less attractive to the Spanish, who focused their efforts on larger and more lucrative colonies. In the early 17th century, European interest in Grenada was rekindled, this time by the French. In 1609, a group of English settlers attempted to establish a colony on the island, but they were quickly driven out by the Caribs. The French, however, were more persistent. In 1649, a French expedition led by Jacques Dial du Parquet established a settlement at what is now St. George's, the capital of Grenada. The French named the island La Grenade and began to develop it as a sugar colony. The French colonization of Grenada was marked by violent conflicts with the Caribs, who fiercely resisted the encroachment on their land. In 1651, the French and Caribs clashed in a brutal battle at Le Morne des Sauteurs, Leapers Hill, where the Caribs, facing certain defeat, chose to leap to their deaths rather than surrender. This tragic event marked the end of significant Carib resistance, and the remaining Caribs were either killed, enslaved, or assimilated into the growing African slave population. With the Caribs subdued, the French began to develop Grenada as a plantation economy, heavily reliant on African slave labor. The island's fertile soil and favorable climate made it ideal for growing cash crops such as sugar, tobacco, and indigo. By the mid-18th century, Grenada had become one of the most prosperous colonies in the Caribbean, with a booming sugar industry that generated immense wealth for the French planters. The plantation system, however, was built on the brutal exploitation of enslaved Africans. Thousands of Africans were forcibly transported to Grenada, where they endured unimaginable hardships, including backbreaking labor, harsh living conditions, and brutal punishments. The enslaved population outnumbered the white planters, leading to a constant fear of rebellion. Despite the oppressive conditions, the enslaved Africans preserved their cultural heritage through music, dance, and religious practices, which would later become integral to Grenadian culture. Grenada's status as a French colony was short-lived. In 1762, during the 7 Years' War, the British captured the island, and it was formally ceded to Britain under the Treaty of Paris in 1763. The British continued to develop Grenada as a sugar colony, and the island's economy flourished. However, the British also faced challenges, including the threat of slave revolts and the growing abolitionist movement in Europe. One of the most significant events in Grenada's history during British rule was the Fédin Rebellion of 1795. Inspired by the French Revolution and the abolition of slavery in French colonies, a free mixed-race planter named Julien Fédin led a revolt against British rule. Fédin and his followers, consisting of both free people of color and enslaved Africans, seized control of much of the island and held it for over a year. The rebellion was eventually crushed by British forces, but it highlighted the deep-seated tensions and desire for freedom among the enslaved population. The abolition of the transatlantic slave trade in 1807 and the eventual emancipation of slaves in 1834 marked a turning point in Grenada's history. The end of slavery led to significant social and economic changes, as former slaves sought to establish their independence and improve their living conditions. Many former slaves became small-scale farmers, cultivating crops such as cocoa, nutmeg, and bananas, which would later become key components of Grenada's economy.
Throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, Grenada remained a British colony, but the seeds of nationalism were beginning to take root. The early 20th century saw the rise of labor movements and political organizations advocating for greater rights and representation for the island's predominantly African-descended population. The labor unrest of the 1930s, part of a broader wave of protests across the British Caribbean, led to significant reforms, including the introduction of universal adult suffrage in 1951. The post-World War II period saw a growing push for self-governance and independence across the Caribbean. In Grenada, the charismatic and controversial figure of Eric Gairy emerged as a leading political figure. Gairy, a former trade union leader, founded the Grenada United Labour Party, GULP, and became the island's first chief minister in 1967. Under Gairy's leadership, Grenada achieved associated statehood in 1967, granting it full control over its internal affairs while remaining part of the British Commonwealth. Grenada's journey to full independence was not without challenges. Gairy's government was accused of corruption, authoritarianism, and human rights abuses, leading to widespread discontent. In 1974, Grenada finally achieved full independence, with Gairy as its first prime minister. However, his rule was marked by increasing authoritarianism and economic stagnation, setting the stage for a dramatic turn in Grenada's history. In 1979, a bloodless coup led by the New Jewel Movement, NJM, a Marxist-Leninist political party, overthrew Gairy's government. The NJM, led by Maurice Bishop, established the People's Revolutionary Government, PRG, and embarked on an ambitious program of social and economic reforms. The PRG sought to address issues such as poverty, illiteracy, and unemployment, while also promoting gender equality and workers' rights. The Grenada Revolution, as it came to be known, attracted both admiration and criticism. The PRG's policies, including land reform, free education, and healthcare, were praised for their progressive nature. However, the government's close ties to Cuba and the Soviet Union, as well as its suppression of political dissent, raised concerns among Western powers, particularly the United States. The revolution came to a tragic end in 1983, when internal divisions within the NJM led to a power struggle. Maurice Bishop was placed under house arrest by hardline elements within the party, and in a dramatic turn of events, he was freed by supporters but subsequently executed along with several of his allies. The chaos that followed prompted a military intervention by the United States and several Caribbean nations, leading to the collapse of the PRG and the restoration of constitutional government. The aftermath of the revolution and the U.S. intervention marked a new chapter in Grenada's history. The island's economy, which had been severely disrupted by the political turmoil, began to recover with the help of international aid and investment. The 1984 elections saw the return of democratic governance, with Herbert Blaise of the New National Party, NNP, becoming prime minister. In the decades since the revolution, Grenada has made significant strides in rebuilding its economy and strengthening its democratic institutions. The island's economy has diversified, with tourism, agriculture, and financial services playing key roles. Grenada's nutmeg industry, which was devastated by Hurricane Ivan in 2004, has also rebounded, reaffirming the island's status as the island of spice. Grenada's political landscape has been characterized by a two-party system, with the NNP and the National Democratic Congress, NDC, alternating in power. The island has also played an active role in regional and international affairs, particularly through its membership in the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, and the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS. The history of Grenada is a testament to the resilience and determination of its people. From the indigenous Arawaks and Caribs to the African slaves, European colonizers, and modern-day Grenadians, the island's history is a complex and multifaceted narrative of struggle, resistance, and triumph. Despite the challenges posed by colonization, slavery, and political upheaval, Grenada has emerged as a vibrant and independent nation, proud of its cultural heritage and optimistic about its future. As we reflect on Grenada's history, we are reminded of the importance of preserving and honoring the past while striving for a better future. The story of Grenada is not just a tale of an island in the Caribbean, it is a story of human resilience, the quest for freedom, and the enduring spirit of a people who have overcome adversity to build a nation that continues to inspire the world.